Question. In the era of global boiling, what are the two most important things? Obviously, it's peace of mind and friends. Greta says,
For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear.
We need to feel that soothing certainty that we still only have 7 years left to save the planet. There's no time for debate. There's no time to change our minds. That would just alienate our friends. Because we all have to think like a group. It's all about loyalty. And as an old man wisely said,
we choose truth over facts.
With this in mind, I've compiled a list of topics that us climate activists should avoid. Paradoxes that would upset our peace of mind. Subjects that may raise irritating questions or doubts that may split us apart. Now, this list is controversial. In fact, you might actually get offended by it. If so, before ending this video, first click the dislike button. Next, say something nasty in the comment section. Don't just go away quietly. Remember, silence is violence. Number 1, the medieval warm period. The medieval warm period was a time when it was so warm that the Vikings did some farming on the coast of Greenland. That sounds like a conspiracy theory, but in an inconvenient truth, Al Gore confirmed its existence based on Antarctic core samples he used for his own theories. Climate change deniers will shamelessly use the medieval warm period to prove that global warming can happen without burning fossil fuels. So if you Google the subject, you might feel you have to concede the point in any argument. Googling might also lead you to videos like this one showing Greenland ice core analysis, the same technique as Gore.
We believe that in Greenland, the medieval warm period was about 1.5 degrees warmer on average than today.
No disaster, no extinction.
And then around 1875, we have the lowest point in the last 8,000 years.
Your friends will think you've gone MAGA. Don't do your own research.
We don't need no education.
I made the mistake of hiking to the glaciers in Iceland. Our tour guide said that when the Vikings first settled Iceland in the 9th century, there were no glaciers. None! He expected us to believe that the glaciers went from nothing to full size in the centuries after the medieval warm period and only started retreating in the late 1800s. Ha! What do the Icelanders know about climate change? They don't even use solar panels. Number 2, zoologist Susan Crockford. Susan Crockford is perhaps most famous for being fired after saying polar bears aren't going extinct due to climate change. The climate activists take comfort in knowing that the consensus of scientists support the global warming narrative. So it can be rather unsettling to know that the consensus depends on canceling people who disagree, or worse yet, have data that contradicts the disaster predictions. And you see the importance of disbelieving the medieval warm period. Because if polar bears have survived other periods of Earth's history when it's been hotter than it is now, then another reason not to Google Susan Crockford is because you might learn of her book Fallen Icon, which shows that walruses did not die due to climate change in David Attenborough's famous documentary. You don't want to really know what happened to those walruses. Number 3, climate discussion nexus. This one is tempting because we care about climate. We care about discussion when people agree with us. And I don't know what a nexus is, but it has an X, so it must be inclusive. If you search on Google or YouTube, you might find their video series checking sea level rises, typically 2 or 3 millimeters a year. Huh. At that rate, it would take thousands of years to reach Al Gore's prediction of a rapid 20-foot rise in sea level. Sometimes they use records going back to the 1800s, but usually the data comes from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So it looks scientific. But Al Gore won a Nobel Prize and an Academy Award. Who are you going to believe?
By 600,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every single day on the Earth. That's what's boiling the oceans.
Worse, they cherry-pick locations, like Bill Gates' $43 million beachside mansion. Obviously trying to embarrass climate activists, getting them to think that Gates is a climate hypocrite who doesn't believe in Gore's predictions of disaster. Number 4, books. Books are filled with ideas that challenge beliefs. That just messes with your peace of mind. And if you change your opinion, you lose friends. You have to think like a group. Gaining knowledge from books is dangerous, because when you argue with climate deniers, you might feel you should agree with some of their points. That's the idea of ignorance is strength, a motto from a famous British socialist whose name has gone down my memory hole. This book argues that climate science is unsettled, disagreeing with Greta's fact that it was settled 30 years ago. Also unsettling was that it was written by Obama's science advisor, Professor Stephen Koonin. You'd think a professor would know more about science than Greta. Don't Google John Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath. He wants you to believe people suffered a horrible heat wave and drought in the 1930s when CO2 was low. Animal Farm? The book says nothing about methane. And of course, the Holy Bible with stories of fires, floods, and droughts before fossil fuels. And they want you to believe Egypt was a land of milk and honey 2,000 years before it was covered by the desert. Number 4.47, Tony Heller. According to unnamed experts, 53% of climate activists already know that they shouldn't Google Tony Heller of realclimatescience.com, so this counts only as 47% of a subject for this video, and I won't say anything more. Number 5.47, Bjorn Lomborg. Well, remember what I said about the dislike button and nasty comments, because this guy's written books like The Skeptical Environmentalist and False Alarm, How Climate Change Panic Costs Us Trillions, and says global warming saves lives because more people die from cold than heat. Now, with most people like this, we should deal with them like this.
Mate, you can shut your mouth. You can shut your mouth. People are dying because of you and sociopaths like you.
You see, the trouble is Lomborg is a gay vegetarian. Meaning if you attack him, you'll be accused of being a far-right MAGA homophobe, even if what you say is 100% true. So he gets away with posting charts like this on Twitter, showing climate-related deaths dropping for over a century. Well, technically they are facts, but...
We choose truth over facts.
But the truth is...
People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing.
Look at Lomborg cherry-pick the stats. He starts the graph at 1920, obviously because it would look better than if he started the graph at 1975. Oh, he didn't include 1911. Probably to hide the big heat wave. Luckily, those people in 1911 didn't have air conditioning. Imagine the extra carbon. Most annoying is that you can't even label Lomborg a climate change denier. Quote Fancy even makes his quotations into inspirational wallpaper and posters. Global warming is real, but not the end of the world. The total efforts of the last 20 years has reduced global emissions by less than 1%. Nice scenery, but sheesh. Wishful thinking is not sound public policy. And my suggestion is that we should first work to ensure the third world has clean drinking water and sanitation. As a Canadian, that one hurt. Because in Canada, dozens of Aboriginal communities still lack clean drinking water. And in a country where it gets so cold, a toilet paper roll can freeze solid in midair, and the mayor of our largest city once called in the army to shovel snow, our government still pays tens of billions to foreign corporations to build electric car batteries, in the wishful hope these cars could someday lower Earth's temperature by 1/100 of a degree. Stick it, Lomborg. Canada has priorities and commitment. Please dislike and subscribe.